This is the East Fork of the Lewis River. We are taking out this pullout on the side of Sunset Falls Road. Normal put-in is right at Sunset Falls, just a short walk up from the day-use parking, but at higher water we can put in a couple miles further up at Sandy Beach. If you do start at Sandy Beach, it does add some fun moves to the trip. I don't know the names of any of this upper stuff in here, but it's pretty fun, but the best rapids are all in the lower section. You're not really adding a whole lot of action to the trip, but it is a fun warm-up before you get to Sunset Falls. We came across some wood in the upper section too, and from what I hear, that's kind of common when you come up to Sandy Beach. I can't remember ever having issues with wood in the lower section, but I've probably only run the East Fork of the Lewis about 10 times in my life. But I had some good footage, and I have lines I'm confident in out here, so figured I'd make a video. The upper section does want more water than the lower section. This is 1870 CFS. The only other time I ran the upper section it was 1380, which was enough to get down it, but I would probably want more water than that in general to get excited about going up and running the upper part. The other downside to putting in at Sandy Beach is that once you get up above Sunset Falls, the road is all full of potholes. This rapid here is the last one before Sunset Falls, so it's good to recognize it so that you know what you're coming into and you can eddy out if you want to. Sunset Falls is a real nice drop. There's a few different lines you can run and some little variations for different water levels. Most common line is this center line here, and this is 1870. At higher flows like this, you want to make a left turn and kind of boof off to the left, just like that. I tried to just come in straight and launch off the rock, which is a line that I really like at lower flows, but it did not work for me at this level. I just kind of went up on the dome and skidded a little bit and just plunged in. And then I ended up actually knocking my camera off my helmet with my paddle. But at lower water, it's a lot easier to line up with the rock the way you want to and kind of launch off of it. So I feel like that's the best line to take. This is about 800 CFS. I feel like I've taken the same line up to like 1100 CFS, and it's been good. I haven't been able to get that left turn move to work for me at lower flows. It just feels like there's shallow rocks blocking your paddle, and there isn't really a lot of water shooting off there, so I wasn't able to get a good boof. I just plunged in. There's a left line too. Here it is at 1380 CFS. Jonah just had beautiful boof after beautiful boof off that line, but there's a guardian hole in front of it, and I found it really hard to like keep my momentum and balance going through that hole. I basically just did that over and over again. At lower water though, I found it like a lot easier to get through there without getting slowed down by the hole. There's a nice line to thread through. So there's another line over here on the far right. It doesn't get run very much. I remember running it a couple times at maybe 900 or 1000 CFS, but it's not as nice or as clean as the other lines. After the falls, there are a couple of easier rapids that don't have names. The next named one is called Hippie John's Boulder Garden. I actually just learned the name of this one recently. I kind of forget it's there sometimes. It feels like you can just stay in the flow, and it works out. I actually didn't get any footage of this one at higher flows. After I knocked my camera off my helmet, I didn't manage to reattach it. I got some nice footage of some of the other kayakers, but not in this rapid, unfortunately. Little ways after Hippie John's Boulder Garden, you've got this little move right here. Nothing special. And then after the next straightaway, you're coming up on Sky Pilot. The first lot in Sky Pilot is pretty narrow, but I try to be towards the right-hand side of it at lower flows. There's a shallow rock in here that I just kind of skip off of, and that usually gives me a good line. If you try to stay left of that rock, there's another shallow rock behind it that kind of blocks your paddle from giving a good boof stroke, and so I just kind of plunge in and get popped up. I guess in that shot it didn't really look like I got popped up, but when I ran that line, it didn't feel right. It didn't feel good. After Sky Pilot, there's a rapid that gets pretty tricky at low water. I'm sure that there is a better line here than the one I took, but 818 CFS is a pretty minimal flow to run this river. I think the first couple times I did it, I think it was around 900 CFS, and I don't remember that being too scrapey, but maybe it was. I'm not sure. It was a long time ago. I know I ran it last year at 1100 CFS, and that felt like a real nice flow. So pretty soon after Sky Pilot and that scrapey spot, you're coming into Screaming Left, which might be the trickiest move on the river. Lewis likes this right line here, which I did run it once my first time down the river, but making that deep move right there with kind of a bunch of current pushing up against the wall right above Dragon's Back, it's always felt less predictable to me than just running the left side of the rapid. Um, I never make the left side look quite as pretty as Paul does right here, but I know that as long as I can get as left side of that wave right there, um, and I'm pointed downstream, I'm not really worried about what's going to happen for the rest of the rapid. Here it is at low water. Um, I just really focus on getting, like tucking right behind this finger of rock that's sticking out. That's the main move right there. And yeah, the rest of it just falls into place. There's an eddy on the left, right below Screaming Left. If you don't catch that eddy, then you're going into Dragon's Back. Dragon's Back, I like to hit this mound of water right here, and then I turn left just a little bit, coming off that slide there. You don't need a whole lot of left-hand angle, but just a little bit of left-hand angle works out really great. You go through this gorge. At higher water, it's pretty much the same line. 1870 CFS. The first kayaker is hitting that pile of the water and getting just a little bit of left angle. If you're too far left, you can end up in that hole there, and that's a really nasty spot to be. This kayaker doesn't get quite enough left-hand angle and gets pushed towards the right bank. That's another concern, is getting just jammed into that right bank there. So it is a pretty precise line, but if you do it just right, it feels wonderful. John's swimming hole comes up pretty quick after Dragon's Back. There's two different lines in here. This left line is probably the easiest, just getting into the eddy left of that big hole there. There's a real fun line down the right, but it's pretty tricky because there's a finger of rock sticking out that you can't really see coming into it. So you don't want to hit that rock, but you don't want to go straight into the hole either. These two paddlers had really nice lines. Wonderful boof right there. That one looked awesome. Some paddlers definitely took some pretty big rides in this hole right here. It seemed like when they got flipped over, though, they'd flush out pretty quickly. But you know, if they were right side up, it kind of tossed them around for a while. This next guy had a pretty good ride in there. Seemed like he was having a good time with it. That hole isn't as big at lower water. I'm pretty sure that I've just gone like right down the middle and tried to boof at like 800 or 900, and you know, it kind of like it slowed me down a lot, but I came right through. I'm pretty sure I've done that, but it's definitely better if you can just kind of run the same line over on the right there. After John's swimming hole, the trip chills out quite a bit for quite a while. There's still some moves in there. Um, you know, there's maybe some fun things to do, and at higher water, there's places you can stop and surf. At this level, though, there wasn't really anything that looked worth stopping for. Um, but yeah, this part of the trip feels like it drags a little bit to me, honestly. Um, it's just a really long ways between John's swimming hole and Horseshoe. Once you get to Horseshoe Falls, the standard line is the second slot from the right. I always notice the sticks to the right of me as I'm coming into it. And you want to kind of tuck in behind this rock on the left there going through the slot. And you want to try to get left for the slide. This looks like a really nice line to me. Here it is from the bottom. If you're too far right, you can end up in this eddy on River Right, and that can be hard to get out of. I saw a couple kayakers have to climb out of their boat on that side. Or you know, if you just plunge in, you go a lot deeper if you're over there, even if you do get flushed past the eddy. So here it is at low water. At 800 CFS, the slot to get into that move was really narrow. I had to put my boat up on edge, but it wasn't pushing very hard, so it was pretty easy to get far enough left, and then it doesn't take much to straighten your boat out for the slide. I try to keep just a little bit of left-hand angle, but let my boat kind of pivot around a little bit going down. There's a slot on the far right that looks just horrible, like maybe even deadly. I don't think anybody runs it over there. Paul and Lewis ran a left line that I'd never seen before, but it looked awesome. I definitely think it's trickier than the standard line, but they both made it look really cool. If you want another lap on Horseshoe, you can hike back up on River Left. And after Horseshoe, it's a little ways on down to the takeout. This is the last rapid right here. You want to eddy out on River Right, just below it. And that's the East Fork of the Lewis.